Hello. Hi. This is a take 2 Instagram Live. I tried to do this last Thursday with the wonderful Melanie Turner, and actually we did. We went for like 40 or 15 minutes, and then we got destroyed, which I will try not to see. So here we go again. Both of us have better Wi-Fi situations, I believe. Yay!
Yay! Here we are.
Okay, well, I'm just going to pretend I haven't spoken to you at all.
I know. It's echoing. I'm in. Let me show you where I am. Can I turn this around? Yes, I can. So this is where I am.
Beautiful.
This is my 100-year-old house, which was the ballroom. But
ballroom.
I call it a ballroom because I do charity work, and it's cheaper than furnishing it.
It looks amazing.
But am I echoing in here?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
So there you go. So I'm going to ask you questions as though I don't know the answers, Melanie. Where did you, what did you, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. Okay. When you were younger, did you know you wanted to do this, and why?
Yes. I know that it's terrible when people say, yes, I've always known what I wanted to do, but I really did.
No, I think it's great.
Always what I wanted to do. Started out thinking I wanted to be an artist. I don't know who told me that I couldn't make money at that. It couldn't have been my parents because they were creatives. Uh-huh. But then it kind of morphed into fashion that by the time I was ready to go to college, I knew it was interiors. So. And
what artist did you want to be when that was first a thing?
Oh, well, I don't know what artist because I probably didn't even know any artists because I was probably 5. So, young.
Way back.
Yes. But both my parents were kind of very creative, so it just kind of like was a normal thing. Like you growing up in your house, same thing, where it was just at the kitchen table. My parents would antique, look for art. My mom trained with Vidal Sassoon in London. We immigrated when I was 8.
That's right. You were born in the UK. See, this is where COVID fog really works out for me.
Yes.
Yes.
You can have a conversation and nobody even remembers. So it's all good.
At all. So you moved to the States at what age did you say?
3. We came over on the Queen Mary. My uncle was an engineer with Westinghouse, and he brought my grandparents over on holiday, and it was Florida, of course, and it was Miami, and they just thought it was amazing. Went back and showed my 20-something-year-old mother with 2 little girls and my dad, and she told my grandparents, if you want to see your grandchildren, we're out of here, you better come with us. So 9 of us immigrated on the Queen Mary, including our Welsh Terrier.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Coming in with style, no less.
Yeah.
Do you remember that trip at all?
I actually remember seeing the Statue of Liberty as a little girl. And so every time I go out there, I'm bawling and everyone thinks something's wrong with me because it's just, I truly feel like I'm living the American dream.
Well, there is something wrong with you. So you came here, you lived in Miami.
No. I grew up in Tampa. I grew up in Tampa, Florida.
So you're all heading up.
Yes, I was heading up, and then I was heading to New York. My family had moved to Atlanta, and I stopped in Atlanta, and unfortunately my dad was killed in a car accident when I was 18. So
we talk about that.
Yeah.
New and unwelcome news.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, like, I had him for 18 years, and so I always feel like I got more than most people. So it was all, it's a.
Yeah, there's never a God. That was a great time to lose a parent.
There's never a good time, but I think what it instilled in me, as I think it did with you, is that it makes you want to do good. It makes you want to prove yourself and to our dads and be like, we've got this. So in a weird, like, subconscious way, not even
fear. holy shit, no one's going to take care of you.
Yeah. Oh, that'll do.
You got to figure this out. And maybe.
I think that's where you and I have that in common. Like that grit comes from, which, can't be taught.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the grittiest person, but I like that I come off that way. So good. So what did you study after you left high school?
So I went to school at a university, and the program was a 5-year program. So you do, 2 years of your core, 2 years of art, and then you get actually invited into the design program. So yeah, I did. So interior design. And then after that, I did commercial design, and gives you a lot of structure, but is not as creative as I wanted it to be. So
commercial design, were you focusing on?
Office buildings, banks.
Right.
Radio.
Is there anything from that you feel that has really given you an interesting and cool perspective? Because it must. I mean, it's part of your arsenal.
The perspective. I think everything builds on the scale, and the knowledge of understanding scale is so important. We as professionals, I think that's really what separates the men from the boys, so to speak. But I also think that beyond that, I don't know. I think that I totally was answering your question, and then I'm like, okay,
where was what? Huh?
On this.
Lapses in memory or train of thought are welcome.
Well, honestly, if you had seen what I was doing 5 minutes before this, I just did a complete Photoshop shoot, in my backyard, literally 5 minutes. So from the waist down, you don't want to see. So
well, I'm playing this, and frankly, I can wait for the waist down till market. Will I see you at market?
Yes, I'm leaving on Wednesday. What about you?
I'm not going to say when I'm leaving.
Okay, good. You're there already.
I have my reasons for being vague. So that's great. I'm happy I'm going to see you there. And I forgot, and this is good that we're talking about this, that I should have led with the fact that you're a recently published designer, and your book is amazing.
Yep.
I can't hear.
I have help here.
Hi.
It's actually Allie's birthday. She was helping me with the photo shoot, and I said, "Can you go get my book for me?" So I'm trying to whisper, thinking nobody out there can hear me, like a total.
I can hear you. So there's happy birthday. And yes, your book is called Inviting Interiors.
Yes.
It is a Rizzoli book. Bravo, beautiful.
Thank you.
It's a stunning cover. And in your questionnaire answers, you mentioned that, I think it was under things to collect obsessively, or the ambient question, that you love things from the 1970s. Like there's a nostalgia love for that. And
right.
Then actually your cover is a wonderful distillation of a lot of things that you do. It's fresh, it's clean, it has classical elements, it has antiques, it has modern art, it has a really lovely palette. And go down a little, we can't see the bottom, because you also said that you don't like red, but you don't mind it when you see people do it. But what is that I see on the cover of it? Oh, look, a red ottoman.
Well, I consider it to be berry, but there you go.
Well, a berry isn't a red, but I hear you.
I agree.
It's a gorgeous book. When did you start working on it? And what was your process? And did you always know you wanted to do a book? Because
oh, no, I didn't actually. It was 2019, and I wanted to do a book on my house because it's a 100-year-old house next year, and I not so much for myself, but just to let everyone know about this cool house that exists in Atlanta, and in fact the United States. So I kind of put together a lookbook and sent it to a publisher, and no, actually sent it to an agent. And then when she was in town, she came to meet with me, and she looked at all of our work was in our office, and she's like, we're not gonna do this on the house. We're gonna do this on you, because you never think you're ready for a book.
what?
Yeah, but still don't think, like, it's really strange. Like, people say, you know, what's your best work? And I think I haven't done my best work. And so I just don't look at myself that way or our work. I just love what we do. So I just never thought of necessarily doing a book. So we worked on it luckily we worked on it in 2019. We'd had all the photographs that we needed. And in 20, when everything shut down, it was already going to, as I say, the slow boat China for printing. It actually was being written. And the only thing left was doing the cover. And so Rizzoli had decided that they liked that cover, and I didn't think it was styled enough. You know, we get a little bit more oomph when we're taking these photographs. So I begged them to give me some days, which they did. And then we went back in, and the clients were lovely. And I basically, in 4 days, was able to get in there, and less than 4 days, 4-day turnaround, and get the photograph back to them. And the great thing about the piece of art that's on the cover is an American Martin, who I love. Mm-hmm. And I borrowed it because the client had a piece of art there, and I didn't think it was big enough. So I borrowed the art, put it in there, and the client walked in, and I said to him, I said, I think you need to buy yourself a Father's Day present. And he said, yeah. So they bought the painting. So it actually is in the room. But I also like to point out that, like, there's a CP2 table in the center of the photograph.
Yeah, it's a great eclectic mix. And I know eclectic is, you know, it's not overused because it is what so many of us are contending with, but it's a great eclectic mix. It really is. And I think you have that mix. It doesn't date.
Right.
No, it lives as a vibrant interior for a longer time.
It breathes, and it's more of it becomes your own personality. You know, I think you and I had spoken about, like, I think that all rooms need art and a dog in them, in my opinion. And the reason for the art is because everybody can buy the same furniture pretty much, but if you put different art in it, it becomes your own space.
Sure. And and I would add to that even though we can all buy the same furniture, of course, that's why we do care so much about details.
Yes.
The precise same reason.
Bought the same furniture.
I lost you for a minute there. Can you repeat that?
I said that's why you hire a designer, so you do not buy the same furniture, because we're really pickers and editors and sorcerers, and, you know, we share our wealth with everyone, our knowledge.
I'm watching my dog and wondering if he's going to hop on the dining room table, and I'm hoping the answer is. So you went to design school.
Yes.
And you went into commercial design, and then you started a family.
Yeah.
And then your husband, I mean, do we call him a developer? Is that what we call him?
He's a developer builder. We met each other. I was doing pharmaceuticals at the time, which is also really.
Love how bizarre that is.
I did that for 5 years. I called myself UPS and a driver. I was trying to figure out the logistics on why do they need me to bring in pharmaceuticals. But the cool thing about it was I learned a lot about corporate America and how it works and the business end of it. So I felt like that was really important. There's design firms that are really creative or really business and with no soul, and I kind of try to do the two together. So I met my husband, and he went to grad school in Columbia in architecture and design and restoration. So he didn't know what I was doing. I thought he was just a builder with a hammer. And so we fell in love. And I always say that I ended up doing his houses for sex, jewelry, free. Yeah, really for free, people. And but it enabled me to be with the kids. And
it was free lunch.
He was so funny because he would spend all this money on beautiful trim, and I would go in there and say, I need the trim the same color as the walls. And he's like, I just spent all this money for trim. I just wanted to everyone to see it. And I was like, do you wear all your jewelry on the same day? No.
Did you do that on the cover of the book?
No, I didn't, because
is that a thing you had not pulled that out as like a thing that you did when we last spoke. So
when I was meeting him, and like he was, I don't even remember the color he was using, but it was a beige, and it just was like, oh my gosh, it just stood out too much. It was a neutral. It wasn't a color. Like a color and a trim is really pretty, like what you have behind you. But yes, so pretty. So that was the difference. And it was
I'm white crown molding right now,
and I love it.
I'm going to paint that the color of the walls later this week.
Yes. You doing this? Should I need to do this?
Yeah. Trying to like, oh, that gray. So your time at working in pharmaceuticals, as you said, you learned about corporate America. You had already learned about designing for corporate America when you were doing commercial work. I think, and I refer to this always on these 52 weeks, bless you, is that this brilliant woman I was talking to once said that whatever you do that's not design is your superpower. And I would continue that by saying that there is absolutely no knowledge that is not of use in period. So
exactly, you never know at the time something happens to you, you never know that it's a silver lining as a gift. You just you kind of muddle through, and then you look back. And one of those situations for me was when the recession hit in 2010 or 8, 9, and 10. My husband had all these beautiful homes that he had built, and we were moving a lot because we were trying to sell them. And I think
would you live in them first?
Pardon?
Would you live in them first?
So what we would do is we would live in them, furnish them, and then sell them. But at the time, I was photographing them to market them, not for any other reason. But the silver lining was I had this portfolio of work that the magazines wanted. And in one particular situation, the magazine was Veranda. And I had sent, well, actually what happened was prior to that, my husband dared me to be in a contest, which was Southeast Designer of the Year. And we won it. But in winning it, there was no money for advertising. Nobody knew my last name was Turner. They all thought I was my husband's name, Benecki. I was at the event and people were like, who's this Melanie Turner? And I'm like, it's me. So this board and no hoopla, no nothing. Again, everybody was just trying to hold on to their business. And so, and magazines, were in the same situation. So I said, I'm going to be in Veranda. And I cut out, I didn't know at the time that the headers of the magazines were in colors. So I cut out a green Veranda lettering, and I had hundreds of photographs of this house that we were living in. So I picked the dining room, I put it together, put it on my board, which I only had a very small office with a cardboard table basically, and computer and the board. That was it. And I just put it up there and I said, I'm going to be in Veranda. And I sent them the disc, and Leslie Newsom, who I thought this is remarkable. She started Veranda at 50, and I was the same age that this all was happening to me, and she ended up calling me and asking me, did anybody pick this up? I was like jumping out of my skin thinking, did anybody pick this up? Nobody even knows who I am. So I basically had a magazine, a cover of Veranda, and, well, there's a little bit more to that story I should tell, which is kind of cool. And basically what happened was I had hired somebody to help me, and she was fresh out of school, and she opened up the manila envelope because I was starting with friends and family, as we all do, and was on the road, and she started crying, and she said, not only did you make the cover, it's the exact font, color, the green, the dining room, everything that you'd put on your vision board. So it was exactly the same, which is amazing,
but I don't think it's a complete coincidence, because I think that because you had been designing these houses and photographing them for marketing, you also had that eye, not just the designer eye and the eye of a person who had lived in the house and received information about the house by living in it and addressing it thusly. But I think because you were in the habit of photographing these interiors to sell them, you really understood their angles,
You're right. It's very important. I always tell designers, I was like, if you're starting out, photograph every space, even if you've got to go beg, borrow, and steal the things that you put in that room.
Oh, you mean the things? Yeah.
Photograph everything, and your eye will be better, and you can actually see the room better, and it's just really good. So I basically, had no business. I'm the reverse of most people. I did not have one client, but I had an award and a cover of a magazine. So I felt like there was nowhere to go but up. So every client,
many of us would argue that that's pretty high. That's a pretty cool moment. And I also think that you're downplaying you had no client. You were doing something very interesting, which is a completely different business model, which is you were hustling to make it rain. You were designing completely pure to your taste and whatever your budget is. I mean, obviously budget is always a constraint, but you were doing what you thought was right. And that authentic voice is what got you noticed. And I don't think that that's, like, oh, there's nowhere to go but up. I think that's a fascinating, different take on a path that is available to us.
Yeah.
And it's
at it. I never looked that way. And honestly, at the time, like I said, I moved 10 times in 5 years. To me, I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? And looking back on it, it got me to where I am, which is amazing,
and it got you to focus on what you actually thought was going to work in a given house, given your experience of the house.
Exactly. That's exactly what it brought to the table. Thank you.
No, it's so cool. And do you still do that with your husband?
I do, but I do it more in secondary homes for his beach projects. A lot of times clients that are hiring him will hire me, but there's obviously two separate businesses, but yes, I do that for him. And he's my easiest client. Sometimes I think, what was wrong with me? Why didn't I just keep him as a full-time client? Because he is, here's the money, go do what you need to do. So that works out really well.
Which requires you to amass a bunch of stuff off-site.
Yeah. So I do buy one-of-a-kind, beautiful pieces that can go in a home. I'll never forget one of my first clients said to me, well, you're not using leftovers, are you? And I didn't understand the question. I was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean? He says, well, you're not using your stuff, are you? And I said, you should be so lucky if I use my stuff. Like, I collect really cool things and they have personality. So that's what I do. If I see one of a
that says something about the questionnaire. I once worked for somebody who, I love my clients, but this was the rare person with whom I did not get along. And he accused an antique store of selling him a lemon. He was like, this leg had been broken off and reattached to try to look as though it had never been broken. And I was like, well, that's called restoration. Did you want it? Like, it's like hundreds of years old. So yeah, that's weird.
It's hard for people when they buy for the first time, they're buying a lot of furniture and they want everything to be so perfect because they have spent a lot of money on things.
I sympathize with that. I do, totally.
Don't you think that COVID at least it's changed me? Like, I used to, during installs, everybody fix those little bruises or boo-boos that I say. Now you can't get anybody to fix them in time. So I just tell my client, look, there's a scratch on this dining room table. It's going to take another year to get it. I think we just fix it and keep moving. And they seem to be fine with it now. That's
also, what's wonderful about that is you're sharing with them the thought process. And that, I think, is the difference. If you just said, here it is, and they're like, but there's a scratch on it.
Yes.
Then it could appear as though you're trying to hoodwink them. But you're saying, look, this is what we have. You're empowering them to make the decision themselves. But you're giving them obviously the benefit of your experience and saying, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
But I do absolutely understand what you said before. Like, there's that wish when somebody moves in, not necessarily that it's all new, but that it's all perfect. You want to have that moment where it's pristine in it, and you don't feel like.
Yeah. And it's funny. People assume that everyone is a perfectionist in this business. I purposely try not to be a perfectionist. I like throwing something in a room that's one off or just a little bit unusual. And if something is worn and has been used, I mean, that's the beauty of it, that everything doesn't look so new. And you know, I went to India, and that was the huge lesson it taught me, is intentionally they mess a design up in their tile work or in their furniture to make you understand that nothing is perfect. And it's really,
and I've heard that about some Chinese porcelains or calligraphies, that the same thing, they put in an error to be respectful to perfection that can only be achieved by God.
right.
With a, you know, kind of like the what is it, the Babel's, the Tower of Babel kind of thing. Like nothing good can come of trying to make God. But also, you know, what you just said, you said you're not a perfectionist, you like to find oddballs. I mean, some of us would argue that's what makes your designs gorgeous. And perhaps that's also what was your, I mean, you draw and paint, do you not?
Pardon?
You draw or paint or both?
I can draw, like, yes, I can draw a space out in 2 seconds and it all be in scale.
What?
I wish I had time to paint. I will paint in my old age.
Right. So are you drawing with pencil?
Yes, I love pencil.
Okay, so I would say that approach to design, because I too am you know, pencil is my happy place. It allows you to change. You can erase.
Love a
and you know, and sometimes that adds like an interesting, you know, you can, like pentimento, you can read it underneath what you've drawn, and it gives it some depth. So you're finding something is your art. You're putting those oddball pieces, or the patination or whatever is the art of the job.
It's true. It's true.
So I have a fantasy where I'm not marrying your husband, but but the idea of somebody building houses and then hiring me to just do them and sell them is, you know, I wouldn't want to do it, you know, exclusively, but it sounds like, you know, that's something that I would love to do.
Oh, I always say that he gave me this canvas to be able to work on, that honestly, the rooms don't even need furniture, because architecturally they're done so beautifully with leading architects, and him having such a hand in the process and understanding that a house needs to work like a business, where a lot of times you and I both know that closets for brooms and vacuums are left out, or where the refrigerator and the pantry are located, so that when you bring your groceries in, you're unpacking them correctly. Like, that is what we give a client. Yes, it's beautiful and pretty, and we want to enjoy the space, but it really is about a lifestyle and running a house like a business so that it makes your life easy.
That really makes me want to address my empty spaces. Not empty, nothing's empty in my house, but I mean, like, to reorder myself. I haven't quite figured out the order. I think when you and I spoke recently, I was saying that, I think you and I said this, again, COVID brain, and then somebody has a question that I need to ask you, is that I used to think that mudrooms were the purview of houses exclusively, and that, you know, apartments don't need mudrooms. But you know, with the way our lives are, and with the detritus, and with the packages, you know, every dwelling needs that kind of space, and that is, as you said, kind of running a house like a business. You need to understand all of the function.
Yes, those old houses on the North Chicago, David Adler's, all had that. When I first saw those, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know, at the same time, they had a lot of help. So
yeah, I was on an Institute of Classical Architecture and Art trip to Ireland, and my husband was with me too, and we were going through these beautiful old Irish houses, and a lot of them, almost like St. Peter's, have those arms that come off of the main structure. And at the edge of those arms, which are are terminations, so the buildings in themselves. So those are called dependencies. And I love the idea because many of the house that we see in the modern vernacular, that's kind of like the garage and the family room connected to the main house. And I love the idea of the dependencies and all of these spaces that are in fact dependent upon, there's your baby, dependent upon the main house. Now my baby just lost his ball. Why you want me to throw a ball? You've got to get it for me. Somebody asked if I would ask you, what do you, and I know this is a terrible question, but it's one we all have to ask. What would you, how would you describe your style to perhaps a potential client, and or style identifier is what he said.
I liked it. That's a good one. Trying to figure it
out.
I would very fresh. It's based in classical elements, but fresh, eccentric, and let me see what else. Fresh, eccentric, classical, edited. That has an edited look. Like I take everything away before I put things back.
So it's intelligent as well.
So, you know, it's funny because it's like less is more, but I love more too. So it's just a matter of, is the scale right on the more?
And it's different if you stay in the house. You, not the owner, you. Yeah. How long you're exposed to the house, I'm sure directly relates to how much gets in there. Ooh, am I shaky? I'm playing ball with the dog. Maybe that's why. So
I have a scooter here.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to look at that. What is that baby's name?
Scooter. He fell off the bed when he was a baby and got a cast on him around. He's an autographs. I said he's a multi-poo. Can you hear me?
And mine is a Bichon poo.
There you go. Those poos.
Those poos. So I know you wanted to write that book about your house, and I've just seen the ballroom, which is pretty amazing. Oh, Mickey, it's just terrible because it's hard to answer, but it's a great question, by the way. Terrible and great at the same time.
Okay.
Tell me about what you wanted to say about your house. What was the story you were going to tell?
I still think I'm going to tell it. The house is almost like a person. It's only had 3 families, us being the 3rd in 100 years, which is unusual. And it's like this grand peacock that was built in 1923 that was done by a famous architect by the name of Neil Reed and Philip Schutze, although Schutze gets more credit for it, because Schutze worked for Neil Reed, but he is a very Italian influence, so I give both of them credit. And it was a way of life that we don't live today, but the house is able to live for today. Like when the house was originally built, I think there was 8 domestic help working inside and 12 on the people outside on the property. The second family had 2 people. They had Harold, who would be their driver and work in the yard, and Martha, who would do the laundry and the cooking. And they had moved. The one thing that had really changed in the house was the laundry room. So it had started out on what I consider, it looks like the 4th floor, but it's really the 3rd floor, which there was no air conditioning, by the way, when we bought this house. So can you imagine in Atlanta doing ironing on the 3rd floor?
So wait, it's on the 4th, but it looks like the 3rd?
It's on the 3rd, but it looks like a 4th because there's a parapet and it's built on a hill. So it looks higher than what it is. So the family moved the laundry room down to the kitchen and used the old dining room, the servant's dining room, as for the Sears Kenmore, so that Martha could cook and do the laundry. Well, then working girl here comes along, and I moved the laundry room to the maid's room on the 2nd floor where all the bedrooms are. And basically have me and one lady who comes 8 hours a week, and that's it in the whole house. That's how much our lifestyles have changed as far as like needing all those people, and at the same time, me trying to maintain the house and give it energy and life. It just, I give it away to charities and anything that helps the arts, because that's what it's really, I don't feel like it's our house. I feel like we're just here. I'm a steward. That's it. That's just steward. So maybe that's why I want to make sure that it gets put in a book and people can see it for forever. Because I mean, literally the roof was falling, once a roof goes on a house, you're done. So that was the first overhaul and just plaster, and it just, it's my retirement money. It's why I get out of bed every morning, besides design. And at the same time, it's a love. It truly is. So,
do you like doing laundry?
I don't mind laundry. I like the beginning, the middle, and the end, which is why I think I like our business so much too. So it doesn't bother me, but I don't want to do everybody's laundry. I'm done with that.
If everybody in their jobs could say, I like the beginning, the middle, and the end, like what an incredible thing to hear.
It's true.
And it's great. I mean, it's great to both love the result and also the domestic activities that get you there. I spoke to my husband yesterday and he was busy ironing.
Yeah, it's funny. My grandmother loved ironing and I never understood it when I was younger, and now I do, because there really is, like, doing something so simple and calming, and it really
Cool. You were trying to achieve something and at the end of it, you have achieved it.
Right. And it's very satisfying.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to start ironing, but I do like to wash dishes. I almost never use my dishwasher. Granted, you know, I'm not the cleanest person. What changed during COVID for you besides everything?
I think the big change was internally, and that had to mainly do with the fact that I consider myself to be a true extrovert. And all of a sudden, it's not that I necessarily felt like I was missing something, but subconsciously I must have, because I would go to every event. I would not want to disappoint someone if they invited me to their home, because I know how much work goes into it, because I love entertaining. So I would try not to disappoint and show up. And then one day I realized, it was during COVID, not doing all these activities, that I really wasn't missing anything. And so what if I showed up? Does anybody really care?
Yes, we care.
You know what I'm saying? I don't mean that to be a downer on me. I'm just like, unless I'm learning something, like, I'm a very curious person and I get bored easily. So unless, I always tell my kids, like, when you are invited somewhere, you better show up. You better bring something to the table. You're not just there for a free meal. So if somebody is not, projecting something of interest, I don't know, I just all of a sudden realized that I wasn't missing anything. So I think that changed with me. So I don't necessarily feel like I have to go to everything anymore.
That is interesting.
Which sounds, I'm not meaning it to sound stuck up. I just...
No, it doesn't sound like that at all. It's just like recalibrating what you think is necessary of yourself, personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Because obviously we do things within the industry to support our industry, to support our fellow designers, to support good works.
And I do that. I do. I still give all the charities at my house. I do all that, but it was to a point where it was probably too much. And so this made me realize that, I think it made me realize I could say no. I didn't know I could say no. I wish I'd known that in high school. I meant that the opposite.
I think you might want to rephrase that.
Yeah, I meant reverse.
Like, the girl who
wish I had said yes. That's what I meant.
That's hilarious. I asked my daughter the other day, who's a very, loves her friends, is very funny, and
how old is
she? She's 13. But when she gets home, she doesn't necessarily want to go out. She doesn't want to invite people over. And I'm like, what's the story there? And she's like, you know what? The amount of gas I have left is limited.
Right. And she knows.
I thought, wow, that's profoundly self-knowing for a 13-year-old.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. I have so much gas. Like I spend
Again, I really have to take you to task for your phrasing. You need to know in high school, and you've got so much gas. So much.
I mean, I'm with you. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot of energy, people, ever ready battery. So in a good way. And so to me, I don't think about like running out of anything. And now as I'm just looking at it as a precious commodity that I didn't.
Yeah.
He's much more enlightened than I was at 13. And plus, look at the beautiful bedroom you did for her. Who would want to leave that?
Ugh, I can't even begin to tell you what she's done to it. They're like weird plastic vines hanging on the wall.
And those little.
I don't mind Harry Styles pictures.
Does she have babies all over the place like they love at this age?
Do I have what?
Does she have the little baby lights all over the place?
Oh, yeah. Totally. And that I don't think is good for. I love a fairy light, but a limousine colored fairy light, you know, that can't be good for you psychologically to be in a blue light room. That's.
Weren't you allowed to do whatever you wanted with your bedroom?
No, I was led to believe that I had.
Oh, it's what we do with our clients' kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I did with Kiki. I'm like, what's your favorite color? She said green. And then I told her she had picked all this stuff.
Hope she doesn't listen to this. Yeah. See, I got to do whatever.
For Frank.
Yeah. I did the whole Andy Warhol thing. I had Campbell's poster soups wall to wall all over the place.
That is really fun. And that is pop art speaks to, it's like an entry class for kids. It helps get you in there.
Yes.
Okay, wait, I saw a question for you. And what was it? It was a long time ago, I guess. It was something about, oh, by the way, guys, the book is published. The other book we're talking about, she has not begun, but she will. Okay, how much do you let your clients steer your decisions?
Oh, a lot, because they bring so much to the table. I love when they have a collection or they know themselves. You know, a lot of times people have never done this. So I'm like, well, go in your closet, tell me what your favorite colors are. I have a questionnaire that they can or can't fill out, whatever they choose. I mean, it's silly things like, you know, your favorite hotel or your favorite movie star or your favorite movie or where do you eat, so that I can get an insight to them. But yes, I don't mind. I think it's collaborative, and at the same time, I'm really, the beauty of age is that I don't mind telling people straight up what's going to work and what's not going to work. So I've gone on the record to say something's not going to work, and then the client comes back and says, do whatever you want.
Well, they are paying you to tell them that. They, you know, sometimes.
We're their advocates.
Totally. Somebody was asking, Steel Marcoux of Veranda was hosting a talk. I'm so sorry about Percy whining in the background. And we were talking about internet businesses where you can hire designers for 15 minutes or an hour, whatever. Right. And her question was, what do you think that the big difference will be in a client's experience of that? And my response was candor, because you don't have enough time to dress the message.
Oh, I love that.
To say, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, but I think it's going to be too, you know, you just have to like rip that Band-Aid off and be like, that's not going to work.
Right. Totally agree.
So your experience at the beginning of your career, where you are doing all of this work informed by your experience of the houses in which you're living, knowing that you're going to sell them, cracking it, installing it, collecting things, trying them out, and then being unleashed to have a career with clients must be such an about face. What was the process like? I mean, what were the benefits of starting the way you did, and what were the cons?
Well, the benefits were that I'd lived in these houses and lived this lifestyle, and I know how a house needs to be lived in. So I can say what works or doesn't work. Like I'm always telling people, don't. Pardon?
Not just one kind of house.
Exactly. Many houses. So, you know, I always tell people don't build something more than 30 feet from your house because you won't use it. Like if you're putting in a jacuzzi or a swimming pool or any of those, you will not use it if it's more than 30 feet.
A little gem that you just dropped on us.
Yes. The other one is just, you know, I love a good stash closet in the mudroom so that if you're carrying bags and you don't want anyone to see those bags, you can just shove them. You know, it brings me back to my mother-in-law when I got married. We got married in one of our houses and somebody complimented her and said, "Oh my gosh, you must be so proud of your son. This is such a beautiful house." And she said, "If you really want to see how they live, go look in a closet." And I was like, really? It's the one closet in the house that can be totally a mess. And I love those closets that you just in and out of, you know, near the mudroom. So
yeah, like
things,
the warranty drawer in the kitchen.
yeah, everybody needs one place. Exactly.
Appliance.
Exactly. And you know, I love a secondary powder room near the back door, the mudroom, because a lot of small children forget to brush their teeth or brush their hair, or they're coming in from sports. You know, I put washer
Get
dryer.
older, powder starts to go.
Exactly. Yes. But you know, I
Oh,
love putting a washer dryer in a master closet now. If you don't have a room for it someplace else, because that's where your clothes are, or in the mudroom because kids are coming home from sports. So it's like, it changes to the lifestyle, but I can give them a lot of inclination on where they're heading if they have children to the next level.
What was the hardest adaptation that you had to make coming from that background? The background of you only had to listen to yourself.
Yes. Probably just being okay with spending a lot of money.
Yeah, that's funny because I was thinking you definitely understood budgets when you were doing it yourself. Because you probably more stress about budget knowing that you were going to sell them than less.
Yes, yes. But the good thing is, like, now I realize you can only do so much with a budget. Like, it's fine, but at the same time, to have those unusual pieces or to have beautiful one of a kind, like, unfortunately, you know, you can see the layers in a house. You can see the difference in someone spending money and not.
Yeah. The younger people, it makes sense that they have fewer layers, right? You need to like put them in a place where they can begin that process, unless they say to you, "I want all the layers now, help me get there fast."
Right.
Did you and I have the budget conversation about house to interiors ratio?
We did. And I basically was saying, when people ask me, they're like, what should we spend on a house? And I was like, well, I have a lot of peers that say you need to spend 50% of the cost of the house. Now, some people, that's the land's included. In some areas, if it's Malibu on the beach, or you know, any place that land has gotten crazy, New York City, for instance, like, you can't necessarily.
No land.
Yeah. Hamptons, let's say the Hamptons. But that being said, if you know, you can't be crazy about it. But a lot of my peers would say 50%. I feel like the 25 to 30% is a really nice sweet spot. 10% for rentals or just getting started, but the 25 to 30% really allows you to have some nice art and some one-of-a-kind pieces and layered look.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for a lot of business people or finance men and women, they might, you know, it's good for them to have that kind of a number to hang their hat on, because they might not intuitively, they might know, intuitively they might understand the value, but intellectually they may not. So if you can say to her or him, like, this percentage is you know, valuable, and this is why, I think it's very helpful to be able to speak that language to people who don't necessarily speak our language.
And the cool thing, the thing with me is, I like talking about money. Money is not some like sacred thing not to talk about. It's just movement to get something else. So I don't have a problem discussing it. I don't have a problem saying, I think this is expensive. Maybe we can find something for less money with the same look.
Or well, no, saying that because you feel like such a saint. You feel so virtuous.
Don't you?
Oh,
and at the time, I'm like, this is the only chandelier that's going to work, and this is what it is, and I think you need to just bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah. Miles Redd, I don't know if he coined it, but he certainly said it, that he says to his clients, if you buy that expensive, beautiful thing, you only cry once.
Right. I love that.
And I love that too. I was like, oh my God, that's such a crazy expression. I love it.
Well,
but yeah,
you can see that with our clothes the same way. So if the clothes are that way, you could feel the same way with furniture.
I do not feel the same way with my clothes.
You don't.
But obviously, as you would imagine, I am very furniture focused and decor focused. I don't, the ship has sailed on my being a great fashion, potentially anything.
Yeah. I don't want to think about something else. Like, I really do want to go to a uniform of 5 outfits and wear them Monday through Friday and be done. Like, my brain is like yours, working towards space, not me.
Yeah. I mean, if I looked like Christy Turlington, I would totally enjoy, creating myself as an art installation. But yeah, I'm focused on the house. So is your house ever finished?
No, never. Not in my mind, ever.
What does it look like now, besides that ballroom, which is heart-stoppingly beautiful?
Thank you. Yeah. So like these right here, here's a good example. Like these were not here, and they were original to the room, and I was able to find them from relative people and had them refurbished and put in the house.
Where were they? Find them? How'd you find them?
The grandchildren had them.
Oh, because it had so few owners. That's
the original owner. Her name was Mary Guy Twiggs. She was Welsh, which is what I am, which is just so ironic. And she was from Tennessee and was left in 1919. I think she was left $1 million. So God knows what that was. So she built the house. So in essence, the house has only been owned by women, which is another strange phenomenon. And the murals, I read an article in the Atlanta Journal stating that there would have been 5 murals in the house when I bought it, but I only saw one, which I'll let you peek. I'll walk over and peek through the doors. If you can see, let's see if you can see. See that mural?
Mm-hmm.
So that mural.
I don't really know what it's of, though. Is that a figure in the top left?
It's Greek. You would love it. It's Greek mythology, so it's fantastic.
It's very Greek.
Yes, it's very Greek. And
no, very Greek.
Yes, yes. And so I was like, there's no way there's 5. They got it wrong because the 2 that I showed you in the ballroom were missing. So I was like, well, that makes sense. There's 3. So I went on this treasure hunt. One, and Mary Guy had given one to her grandson, who's in his 80s now, and one to her granddaughter, 2 different families, nieces, cousins. And so one was in Charlotte and one was in Atlanta. So they were dry rotted, repaired them. And then this is where the 5th ones are. Can you see the space around the pediment?
Yeah.
That's number 5. So he broke the door with the pediment, with the art. So yeah. I actually have number 4, and number 5, I know where it is, but it's in a frame at the cousin's house. So I'm working on that. I told her to write on the back, when she dies, it comes back here.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
It is nice to have that kind of relationship with, I mean, I don't regret it, but I wouldn't mind having that kind of history available to me, in an apartment, being able to like tug on that thread and see where it goes. And
it's unusual to be able to do that. So yeah, we'll see. That's what I was doing the photo shoot in the backyard. We have these amazing cherry blossoms. If you go to my Instagram and look at the live stories, I'll post them today, of the cherry are unbelievable right now.
So have you now discussed doing this other book with Rizzoli?
Yeah, but as you know, how many books do you have? You have more than one.
I have 2, and right now I'm working on a 3rd.
Okay. Don't you get the bug? Like, I really do have the book bug. I love the process.
I had it in the beginning. After I published the first one, my brilliant editor. She said to me, she's like, everybody, the minute they finish the first one, says, let's do another one.
Like,
I finished the second one. I had, I wanted a break.
right. Same way.
And I mean, I've waited a decade. I've been really bad.
Well, you've been working and you've been raising kids.
2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I know what I will be after 3, and I'm ready to do it. And it's not similar enough to 3 that it's impossible. Wait, I have a house in Skinny Atlas, New York, and soon we'll be decorating. Okay, here's a question. But I love Skinny Atlas. So this woman has a house in Skinny Atlas, New York, upstate, and soon we'll be decorating a house in Savannah, Georgia. Does your design vary based on location?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Location and architecture. I hate to tell a client that it's not there. They're not my first venue. That their interest.
Boss.
First, yes. So we actually did the show house for traditional homes in Savannah, and it was amazing working down there. They have, oh my gosh, the best antiques and warehouses, like full warehouses of furniture. Have you ever, Alexa, have you ever gone and seen like these warehouses full of antiques down there? It's amazing.
But not in Savannah. I've seen them in New York and like on the Long Island City and gone into wonderland of insanity.
Yeah. So yes, that's a good question. It's the same with our own houses, like with yours, like having a theme per se, or a common thread that ties everything together, but is not so matchy, right?
Yeah, I think why designs change from place to place and house to house and from client to client is because choices are not arbitrary. They can be artistic, they can be inspired, but they're not just for no good reason.
Exactly.
That's bad design.
Yeah, or just like, you're at the beach with those beach signs. Like, here's the beach. You're at the beach. Why do you need to have a sign there? So,
well, it's like those amazing progressive ads where the people are turning into their parents, and they're like, "Who needs a sign that says live, laugh, love?" And I was like, "Okay, I get that. I'm glad you're going to stop me something."
Yes. Or like, Stan calls me a golden retriever because I come bouncing into a room and I say hello to everybody. And if everyone's a stranger, I talk to them, and I'm realizing, okay, now I'm becoming like my mother. I need to stop like talking to the people in line with me at the grocery store.
Totally. Maybe it's, I was in a car with my daughter going to look at a boarding school, and I spoke to the driver and I was like, "So what is the main industry in this town?" my daughter was like, "Why?"
I know.
That's the industry.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, it
was very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. Last valuable question.
Okay.
Everything no value, no. Somebody's saying, how would you go about filling your home with beautiful pieces while on a budget? First-time homeowner and in my 20s, early in my career.
Oh, I would definitely say estate sales. Garage sale, estate sales. I would go, I have this pantry, which was a butler's pantry, so to speak, but I made it into a bar area. And I would stop at all these estate sales and buy the silver that nobody wanted and just filled the whole thing with silver. I don't care if it tarnishes or not. You just think of it from a different perspective on just filling
silver, the less it tarnishes.
Right, exactly.
Now, you shouldn't have a stainless steel. Just get silver and use them.
Exactly. I also give it to my 83-year-old mother to give her something to do, which is good. But I just think estate sales and for art, I think art schools or your own children's art or your nephew or niece's art, and just go to IKEA and get frames and do them all in the same frame on the wall, or go get one of your favorite photographs and blow it up at a printing company and put it on a wall as wall covering.
But I think it's also good advice to say it doesn't have to be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
They can begin the process, but you shouldn't just do it all at once, because you need to leave some room, not only for your budget, for budget reasons, but also for your taste to refine or change or develop.
Totally. But like somebody starting out in their 20s, I always say the 3 Ps: paint, pillows, and plants. Done.
Um, I would also say if your walls are entirely bare and you're not likely to get artwork fast, a patterned wall is not a bad thing.
That's true.
So, be, you know, little flowers or something, but to have some, to where are you going? You're disappearing, like you're slowly. Oh,
I'm holding up the phone.
You're having arm fatigue.
Yeah. So I'll change to my left arm. I'm sorry. Listen. This is
right at the point
we feel. Sorry.
Anyway, we are there in any case. We did not get thrown off of Instagram this time.
This is good.
Is everybody look at Melanie's book, Inviting Interiors. It is gorgeous. It can you buy it on your website as well?
Yes, you can purchase it on the webpage. You can purchase it on Instagram. You can, yeah. It's.
If they buy it from you, can you have it signed?
Yeah, I can send it to somebody. Sure, no problem. I send them out all the time. Thank you for asking.
Books, and I can't wait to see you at Market.
Yes.
And is hubby coming?
Oh yeah, are you kidding? He rents well, I don't know, we're renting a van this time, but he usually loves to rent a van and he sit in the back seat and he's like, why didn't we ever have one of these? These are amazing. And he eats cheese puffs the whole way there. So his mouth is orange, his fingers are orange, and then he gets out of the car and goes running. And he just is like, we call him our scout. He's ahead of all of us, but sometimes it's not so good. Like sometimes he's like, they have grilled cheese, but they're not good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, keep walking, So I love him. He's the best. He's the best. We look forward to seeing you.
And you.
Thank you so much for this. I love spending time with you.
And I really do love hearing about your career path because it's so specific and it's kind of dreamy. The of doing, it's just a different approach. And I really appreciate those different approaches. So thank you for sharing.
Wonderful that you're doing this. I love it. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I miss you. I love you. And I can't.
Soon. Congratulations.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.